Namaste, Masha here. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by and for your support. Today's video is my video response to Brian at Papa Squirrel, answering the question that Brian posed to himself a few weeks ago now in his original video. And this question is, if all of my decks disappeared, which would I rebuy? I first saw Brian's video answering this question on his channel, and very shortly after, one of my dear friends forwarded me the link to Jessica Starr, the story Witches VR, which led me to Panda's video, and this is Panda of Arcane Panda. Now, I enjoyed watching the videos so very much, and I will link all those 3 videos and their channels in the description of my video below. But I loved those responses so much that I knew that I had to make my own VR. Look, I understand even a mere thought of deck disappearance may cause anxiety, stress and panic among us tarot lovers, tarot collectors, tarot enthusiasts in the community. Surprisingly to myself, and it's probably sound very weird, I actually thought it is a fun subject, and I got really excited after seeing those 3 mentioned videos. Now it's been 5 years since I began my deep dive into tarot, and since the beginning, especially recently, I have pondered a few times now what decks would I get if I had a clean slate. Now, knowing what I know now, knowing my taste and knowing how I read, right? So what would I get, with decks would I get if I had a clean slate, right? From the point of 0 decks in my library. So after watching Brian's, Jessica's and Panda's video, the first thing that I did was very organic, and I just wrote down the categories of the decks that I would absolutely repurchase if all of my decks disappeared. And then I took a little bit of time to narrow down which particular decks that would fit those certain categories I would include. I'm also approaching this video response from a realistic perspective of deck availability. So if I had to return home today and to find that all of my decks are gone, which decks would I repurchase realistically? Which decks would I repurchase immediately? Probably not the ones that are extremely pricey or very rare or out of print, right? So all of the decks featured in my video are currently in print and available, reasonably accessible and reasonably affordable, and also can be shipped promptly, because I will need the fastest postage if in a situation of losing all of my decks at once. And I have 15 decks in a variety of categories to share with you today, along with 3 extra decks that I will talk about in the end of this video. And the first 3 categories that I had in mind and I jotted down immediately were a Marseille, an RWS and a Thoth. Because this year I'm studying Thoth Tarot, and I want to familiarize myself across the 3 lineages, the Marseille and RWS I'm familiar with. And if you're new on my channel, you probably don't know. If you've been here for a minute, you know that Marseille Tarot is my preferred lineage. Now, all the decks I'm featuring here, I'm just trying to make this video nice and short for you so it doesn't take too much out of your day, too much of your time. So if you're interested in me talking a little bit more in depth about certain decks, do ask me, do write a comment below, ask me a question, and I'm happy to film a separate video if I don't have it already of that particular deck that I will be showing. So a Marseille Tarot, so right, my first category, and I would immediately repurchase a Noblet Tarot, Jean Noblet Tarot of 1650, the first Marseille Tarot deck, reproduction of course, ever available. And the copy I would repurchase most likely would be the copy from Kartograme, and this one is not handmade, it's a more affordable copy, a manufactured copy in a linen cardstock. I do have a walkthrough of this deck. I did edge it as well. But really, I would be happy with either of Noblet copies available, and there are a few, and I have a video of a few different Noblet tarots available if you're interested in your historic Marseille, if you're a tarot collector and you are interested in purchasing the first Tarot de Marseille that we know of. And they're just a few cards. The cardstock is linen, the card size, they're more kind of a plain card size. And in fact, this one is my most magic deck. I absolutely love it. It's one of my biggest users, biggest readers in my own practice. So yeah, absolutely no brainer. That would be the first deck that I would repurchase. And then of course I had to go with RWS and a Thoth, right? And I would repurchase the deck, the Smith-Waite Tarot Centennial Edition. This particular copy, actually, this little one and a tin that I have, is the first tarot that I actually ever held in my life. So this deck, of course, is very special. There are the backs. We are also very familiar with the muted aged look of these cards, and I know this deck is very much loved in our community, and it's so easily accessible, but it's a wonderful, wonderful reproduction of Smith-Waite Tarot with this wonderful artwork by Pamela Coleman Smith, and I adore it. And even after, I purchased this deck at the end of 2015, and it's still in really good condition and has been loved and used by me. So I would absolutely repurchase this one. When it comes to Thoth, if all of my decks disappeared and my two greenies were gone, and of course they're not that easily accessible, I would go for the Swiss version. Well, it's called Swiss version of Thoth Tarot. Actually, the titles are in English in this deck, but that's the box. And they are the larger cards. This is the deck by AGM. Again, I would go with either standard size or that larger size. But yeah, so Thoth, I'm very new to Thoth lineage. And this tarot has been so far, I started studying it kind of at the end of last year, and diving into it and into books on it this year as part of my one of my intentions, right? And I've been really enjoying it. The artwork by Lady Frida Harris, for me, it's extremely beautiful and striking, and there is a lot to learn. So yeah, that will be the third deck I would repurchase. And remember, I did mention I cannot go with 5, right? So I have a list of 15 tarot decks to share with you, hence I'm going rather quickly. So of course, next deck that, because I love my Marseille Tarot so much, I would have to repurchase my first Tarot de Marseille. And my first Tarot de Marseille was CBD Tarot, which I purchased very shortly after I acquired a few RWS decks. I just was drawn to Marseille, and I was very fortunate. This is an indie copy, so I would be devastated if it was gone, but I know US Games copy is available. And for me, I guess the sentimental value that when I was discovering CBD Tarot, and this one of course was created by Yov Bendov, right, based on Converse CBD, Converse Bendov, CBD, Converse Bendov, and the deck is very clean, it's a bit narrower. I love the backs, but I did have interactions over email with Yov Bendov, and he was very helpful, and his website was very helpful before I acquired his book, which I'm a huge fan of, and I've learned so much from, so it's absolutely had to be on my repurchase list. And realistically, if all of my decks are gone, I use my Marseille Tarot most, and this one is another one that is in print by US Games now and very easily accessible. Next deck is it's the fifth will be, right? The deck will be that I first purchased. It was my first purchase. It was my first tarot. And also this deck fits the categories of back to my roots. Now, this is a tarot of St. Petersburg, and the artwork was done by late Yuri Shakov. He passed away years ago now, right? And I did create a tin just using one of the cards, the Three of Cups. as you can see, that kind of one of the cards. So the images, the tarot images, are more shaped within, I guess, embodied within an egg shape that reminds us of egg Fabergé, even if you look at the borders around. But for me, this deck is very special. I do understand. So yeah, that's Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. I do understand that some it may feel busy to some, or the images may be only tiny, but that's my heritage. I was born in St. Petersburg, and I guess this deck, why it's also important to me, that the creator, and I did talk on my channel about that a little bit before, the creator is Yuri Shakov, and my grandfather's name was Yuri Ushkov, so even the first name was the same, Yuri, right? And the Shakov, Ushkov was kind of a play between the letters, and I took it really when I was in the shop of choosing my first tarot deck, very randomly actually. And I do have, well, it's another story, and I do have a video on that I kind of saw it as a sign of approval from my grandfather, and I just knew that I had to get it, and that was my first tarot that I ever purchased. It's Tarot of St. Petersburg, featuring this folklore and the tales and those familiar images that I grew up with. So I don't see myself without this deck ever, even if I don't reach for that often. More and more so I do now that I've received the larger book. I found that larger guidebook as well, which is really great for me, as well as this one is a very special deck to me. So next category that I have is my private dreamy reader. Again, lots of sentimental value in this deck, and I haven't used it. I've used it a lot, and then as we were moving, and actually, well, I haven't used it for a while, but now that I have found it again, refound it, I don't see my library without this deck, and I would absolutely repurchase it. And this one is Crystal Visions Tarot, and if you know my aesthetic, you probably would be surprised to see this deck that I would absolutely repurchase, and it will be one of the first decks I would absolutely repurchase. But it was actually one of my first decks, and sentimental value of it is that it was the first deck that I was gifted, right? And I was gifted by my husband, but also we selected it together, but then he gifted it to me, and we selected it in one of the little towns in Tasmania. And I only used this deck for myself, but again, it's another magic deck. It's been a magic reader for me. It's by Julia, is it Julia Galasso or Jennifer Galasso. It used to be quite a popular tarot deck, but not anymore. I do realize it's not for everyone. I do realize that all those people there, the diversity is not quite featured there. But again, for me, this deck is very special. It's magical. I love the colors. I love the artwork, and I would absolutely repurchase it. Next category that I jotted down was One for the Soul, Tarot for the Soul. And of course I had to go with Pholarchos Tarot, which is still available, and I know that to all countries is not that easily accessible, but in the US you can get it from Arnold's Art, but in Australia we have an Australian store as well that stocks it very reasonably priced. But this deck, it is what it is for me, right? One for the Soul. It's since the first time I really saw it, the box, I knew that this deck is for me. I get so much out of this deck, and I really love the artwork. And I don't want to take your time talking about different suits and how the deck is structured, but what I wanted to mention, and I'm happy to make a separate video on that, right? But that's a soulful deck for me. Look, my soul, my whole body, I have such a response to the readings with those cards. That's the Empress. How beautiful is she? The Temperance. But what I wanted to mention, if you do have your Pholarchos Tarot, the little guidebook it comes with is very poetic and wonderful, but I only received a message on Instagram from the creator of this deck, Carmen Sorrenti, that The guidebook now is available in PDF format, which I of course printed. Happy days now. And the guidebook is quite lovely. It's not that super extensive, but what we do know, we see in the book, we do see the description of the images and the inspiration and the stories from the cards. So I will probably do a video on the guidebook and the walkthrough of the Pholarchos Tarot, because I haven't really done it. And this is the Tower card. It's just one of my favorite Tower cards ever. And of course this is a black and white print that I have. But yes, definitely the deck for the soul for me, and the category as one for the soul is the Pholarchos Tarot. Now, talking about another soulful deck, I have recently been really diving into shamanic studies or reading on shamanism, and I'm very, very new to it, but this deck has to make it, right? So the most shamanic one, that's my category, the most shamanic one. And this is a popular deck. This is a Wildwood Tarot with the book is by Mark Ryan and John Matthews, and illustrations by Will Worthington. And I absolutely love Will Worthington art. And really right now it's probably the more, well, yeah, not necessarily, but one of the more shamanic decks I have in my library, and I would absolutely repurchase this deck. Show you a few cards, but they're the backs. That's the Wanderer, which is the Fool. I did rearrange them back in the order. The Seer, for what we're familiar with, the High Priestess. So this deck has its own system, and there are a few really great supplementary books available. Ask me in the comments below if you're really interested. I will find the links to those books, the Forest Lovers. Yeah, so this deck is amazing and fit my the shamanic one category that I would reacquire if all of my decks were suddenly gone. And next one, so this one was the shamanic one. I also have the Shakti one, and the Shakti one, the Shakti Insider, that's my category, the Shakti Insider. But the deck that I used to work, I guess, with Divine Feminine, and I use this deck on moon days, on full moon, new moon, and it's a round deck. And look, I know not everybody really likes the round decks, but the moon is round, right? The sun is round, the full moon. And this deck is primal, this deck is powerful, and this is the Motherpeace Tarot. This particular copy is a vintage copy that I was very, very fortunate to acquire from one of the community members here in Australia. Just have a look at the Four of Swords with the chakras aligned as the woman is meditating in the tent. Yeah, so this deck has been really powerful in my personal journey, in my journaling. And one of my, again, most used decks for myself. I don't often use this deck. And it's also so much to learn. There is so much about this deck. And as I mentioned, I do have a few books on that. But yeah, I will need this back if my tarot library was emptied. And then I had to, of course, to include the Luscious one. So it's not probably the most affordable deck. It's not mass market, or not all of them are mass market, like this one was not either. But because look, I love the Pagan Otherworld cardstock. If I could, I would have repurchased Playful Heart Tarot, but it's out of print right now, so it's kind of out of my video, right? But the Pagan Otherworlds absolutely would have to be in that list, right? And that would be my Luscious one, because it is that Luscious deck. The cardstock is luscious, the cardstock is linen. I absolutely adore those backs. The top cards are the moon stages that featured here. An extra card of the Seeker is featured here. but the art is absolutely beautiful. This deck is a blend between the Wade Smith lineage and a Pip style decks, and yeah, for me it's just luxurious. The art, the presentation, the cardstock, it's one of my favorite decks as well. And fortunately, it's still available in print from a variety of online stores, not just USI for us international buyers. We have it stocked in Australia, so that would have to be there as well. The next category I have to share with you, I name a must-have Italian tarot, and the deck that I've chosen to repurchase in a case when if all of my decks are gone, is Tarot Sopprafino. Again, easily accessible deck. This one is the copy published by LUSCIOUS. The cards are a little smaller and narrower, and they're delightful. I adore those backings. I love the colors. It's a wonderful, wonderful reader, and it's a delight to look at. It's a delight to read with. And probably if I had to have only one Italian deck, that would be a Tarot Sopprafino anyway, and it would be actually this copy. I do not have or I don't have Il Meneghello copy, but I heard all the good things about it. But I really love this one. The size, the cardstock, the sharpness, the production, the price is good, the availability of the deck is great. So yeah, that must-have Italian deck for me is Tarot Sopprafino. And next category I have is a contemporary one. And this deck was gifted to me by Chris from Elemental Cartomancy, New Era Elements Tarot. Look, yeah, but I love this, and it's again, the cards are a little smaller. I do have a full extensive walkthrough of this deck. I did age it as well, a more kind of sepia brown, but yes, it can be provoking. Yes, some of the images can cause that immediate response, right? But it is diverse, it is contemporary, it's beautiful. One of my favorite Hierophant cards of all time. So that's the contemporary tarot for me. That's a must, that I would immediately repurchase if all of my decks have this. Next prompt to myself that I love my art too, and for that I would repurchase the art deck. The art tarot is Daily Tarot for me. This is the copy produced by Taschen, and I trust they are based in Cologne, and that's the golden box that the cards came in. I do appreciate Salvador Dali artwork. I adore the colors in this deck, and I don't see my tarot library without it, even though I don't use it that frequently, but when I do, and I need to study it a little bit more. And I still want to take Camelia Elias, she's got a lecture, hope she still has it, on art tarots. But this deck is very special to me, so that's I love my art too. Next category I labeled a witchy one. I do need to have a witchy one deck, right? I will have to repurchase a witchy one. And yeah, so as you know, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I am talking about in this video, I'm only mentioning, because otherwise we would be here forever, I'm only mentioning the decks that are in print, readily accessible, easily available, reasonably affordable. So my witchy one will be the Green Witch Tarot. And not to say too much, but this is the world of my first past life regression experience, right? So talking about past life, the first past life, it pretty much was the world that I saw in my vision. So I love the artwork, I love the stories that these cards are telling, and I don't label myself as a witch, yet I do love all things witchy. That also was a gift, and I do feel those gifted decks, they've been quite special, and the people who gifted them to me, they're very special to me, and I know my tastes, and they can make a good guess of which decks I would really read with and resonate with. But really, out of which decks that have witch in their name, right, on the market at the moment, this one is it's the favorite of mine for sure. Hence, I would absolutely repurchase it, and the art is just beautiful. It does have that romantic feel to me. It brings, yeah, just that reminder of my past life regression to just not to go on and on and on how special this deck is to me. I have now aged it as well. And yes, so I have the last category. So this one was the witchy one, and my last category is a down-to-earth one. And it's another deck that I love. I use it and then I don't, but I don't see myself not having it ever. This one is an indie version, which is still actually accessible, available, and Anna Kay herself, she posts those decks, and they arrive quickly. It's just a smaller size, more kind of squarish one, but it's down to earth. This deck is very grounded. It's not loaded with symbolism, yet everything is there. It tells stories. The cards, for me, when I read them, they link really nicely. And I think it's one of those wonderful, wonderful decks which I find grounding, hence it's my down-to-earth one. So they are the tarot decks. So now we've gone through 15 tarot decks, and all of them will be included. The categories that I have chose for myself, that I jotted down for myself, and the titles will be included in the description of the video below. But the question was, if all of my decks disappeared, which would I rebuy? It wasn't specified that tarot decks, right? I would absolutely have to at least rebuy one Oracle, one Lenormand deck, and one playing card deck. So when it comes to the Oracle, I would repurchase Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud, because, well, I need to have a fairy deck as well, right, in my library. But I really love the art, I really love the book, and fairies don't want to come out now. The card book is, the book is hardcover and wonderfully written, very extensive. And I love that the depiction of the Fae energy there. So I, out of those available Oracle decks, if I had to repurchase one, that would be this one. So the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. When it comes to a Lenormand deck, I would purchase any version available of Das Spiel der Hoffnung, which is the original Game of Hope. This one is the AGM version, right? But there is one available, I know, on Philosophy website, and there is a reproduction by Lauren Forrestal. This one is the larger copy that I brought to show you. But out of Lenormand decks, Das Spiel der Hoffnung is, well, the first one, right? The Game of Hope, really. But what I love about this deck, that it's just so clear. I love that featuring of the French and the German suits, and it's ultimately it's my number one Lenormand deck. Not this particular copy. I like my mini. I like the more kind of plain card size. This one is the larger. But if my Game of Hope just vanished, I would be happy with either version. And I like this one for study purposes, especially because the cards are larger and the images, they just stand out just tiny bit more, and really good for journaling and taking pictures of. So that would be the Lenormand deck that I would repurchase. And when it comes to playing card decks, that's really easy, like any playing card deck would suffice. But since they're still available, I would absolutely repurchase Usi Classic playing cards on that beautiful linen cardstock. They're the backs, they're available in the blue and the red backs of that same pattern, and creamier backgrounds. But I absolutely adore the court cards here. That's the reason why I would repurchase this particular playing card deck, because I do read tarot, I do love my playing cards. Lenormand is my second favorite in divination systems after tarot. So yeah, that's the playing card deck, and they're mine. I hope you enjoyed this video response of mine to Brian's original video with the question, if all of my decks disappeared, which would I rebuy? And do play along either in the comments below or Instagram, where you can tag me, my details are below there, or doing a video response if you have a YouTube channel, or if you're thinking of starting a YouTube channel. I think it's a great question to answer, and you can approach it from the perspective of all decks vanished, or you're starting from a clean slate. I kind of approached it in those both ways when I came with the categories that I selected. I've jotted down, and the decks that I have selected for this video. I look forward to hearing from you, and if you have any questions about any particular decks that I featured, do let me know them in the comments below, and I'm happy to make a separate video on a deck that you would like to see, if there is any. And thank you so much for your time, for spending this time with me, for watching this video, and I'm sending you so much love and light, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Namaste.